So let's get into our first topic for today. We're going to talk about the Techno-Medical complex. And just a warning, we are going to end with an article that will likely send 50% of the country into anaphylactic shock. I'm going to warn you up front because, Orange Man Bad's Maha Hero has spoken. And I have thoughts. So let's go ahead and talk about the Techno-Medical complex. And to start this, I actually would like to review what we talked about on our Windows Wednesday. In the event you missed our Windows Wednesday, we talked about Copilot and health. And we addressed this question, do you trust your medical information into the hands of Copilot? I mean, I don't trust my medical information. I mean, I don't even trust my medical information in the hands of most doctors. So, a random big tech company that has a habit of monetizing everything out there is probably not high on my list of priorities to hand any form of data to. But they're talking about this. I mean, and they are security first, like everything Microsoft does with, rolling out a disastrous recall. And hey, in our quick lines this week, we will see that the Microsoft Authenticator for your two-factor codes had a breach. Security first. I would think they would think security first on that too. So if that's a preview of coming attractions, medically we're screwed, but we did talk about this, and then I mentioned, of course, that company, Copilot's like, it's all the health stuff, and then it all links into these centralized databases, and then these centralized databases are used for research protocols, and turns out that the country with the biggest one of these is Biobank out of the UK, and Biobank out of the UK had a data breach. In fact, it's so bad they have regular, constant, ongoing breaches because of all the massive number of people who have access to all of this health data for quote-unquote research information. Don't worry, the data is anonymized. It just tells you what your diagnosis was, what hospital, what's your birth date, what's your gender, and the place and the time it happened. I mean, but it doesn't mention your name, folks. So you can rest very assured in that they don't know who you are. But all of these scientists who have access to this have no earthly idea how to secure any of this data. They don't treat it like it's private health data. And so it keeps on finding its way onto GitHub. I will note GitHub is a Microsoft-owned product. So here's this. They said from July to December in 2025, they issued 80 legal takedown notices to GitHub. 80 times they found health data on GitHub. One data set found online in January consisted of hospital diagnosis, associated diagnosis dates for about 413 participants, along with the sex and the month and year of birth. So, can we trust all of this health data stuff that would like to do nothing more than just collect all of the data and send it all up there and all that kind of stuff? And I hope that you're looking at stuff going, no. And where does it get this data from? Well, it gets the data from your health trackers, your smartwatches, your hospital visits, your smartphone in some cases, iPhone. It tracks a lot of your health data, and you may not even know it does it. Like, I don't have one of those Apple Watches. I wouldn't possibly do that. If you go into your iPhone under the latest iOS versions and you click in under the health there, you can actually see that it's taking your steps, and it has other ways of collecting information. And if you have that phone connected to an iCloud account, guess what? All your health data from that phone is anticipating is being stored up in your Apple account. So good luck with that. So with all that being said, there's this big problem about AI where they can catalog the text really easy, but they can't necessarily catalog the real world. So these guys here are building memories.ai, and they want to build a visual memory layer for wearables and robotics. Now, I was going on the fence about whether to include these articles in a discussion of the Techno-Medical complex, but I think it's important because basically what they're doing is creating a digital real-world physical map that can tie in to all of this other health data. So not only do they know about your exercise patterns, your sleep patterns, but because these things also collect a lot of location data and utilizing these spatial models here, Effectively, they can also know information about the terrain you work out in, the various places you see, the stuff that you see across the way. So they're building this. And what was really hilarious about this is they looked around to see if they could find anyone already building that type of visual memory solution for AI. They couldn't find it, so they decided to spin out of Meta and build it up themselves. But they're about 10 years too late, folks, because I said on this channel almost a decade ago, all these people walk around on their phones, Pokemon Go. I literally said in a video, and I couldn't find which video it was. I literally said in a video, what if they're just going around and just mapping the whole world? They were! They were doing it! This guy was right again! Isn't it hilarious? Pokemon Go players helped build a 30 billion augmented reality image map of the world. Niantic has confirmed it. So Niantic launched Pokemon Go, augmented reality game that took the world by storm. 10 years later, Niantic Spatial is using all the visual data gathered by players to build a massive geospatial model that could power robots and AI. They're basically utilizing this for all these little delivery robots. And what's interesting about this stuff, we'll get there in a moment. So Pokemon Go, along with Pikeman Bloom, Monster Hunter now has access to players' smartphones, cameras during gameplay. The access was not going to be ignored. The games pulled in an astronomical amount of visual data. The result is what it calls a large geospatial model, or LGM, which at its core of the visual positioning system, or VPS, that is based on 30 billion images captured by Niantic games over 10 years. Also, they got a whole spectrum of heights from kids all the way up to adults. So they get enough information to actually build a solid 3D model of everything, utilizing the different heights and things like that. So they're using this for a partnership with Coco Robotics, which is providing the digital maps that are used for all of these robots to be delivering stuff, because, you know, we can't possibly hire delivery drivers. That costs too much. But people are addicted to their fast food through their Klarna supported DoorDash. And so, you know, we'll just continue. We will be quickly approaching the world of WALL-E. If you've not seen that movie, all of the people are just fat slobs incapable of moving that just meander around this ship, second down like super high sugared treats and stuff. But back to memory.ai, they say AI wearables, robotics need memories as well. Ultimately, you need AI to have visual memories. We believe in that future. All we need is the Terminator having a visual 3D map of the world pre-programmed. And in our next article coverage, we'll talk about the robotics and AI being used in military applications, including the detainment of a robot. Yeah, it's getting to be an interesting world here, folks. I've said I'm like a neo-Luddite. I might just go back to being a real Luddite soon. I don't know. I will probably get in prison for calling a robot a clanker sometime in the future after that is made illegal, so that I don't offend the robots, you know. But anyway, they say this isn't as helpful. Like they're talking about the text-based LLMs. They said this is not as helpful for physical AI applications that largely interact with the world through sight and visuals. And building the infrastructure needed to embed the index and to build and index the videos in data into a format that can be stored and recalled, and capturing the data needed to train the models. Well, they're late because, you know, as we said, Pokemon Go has already been doing this. And as we start looking at all of these things going on, we start asking these questions about, do we trust all of these AI data? And it would actually turn out that the answer would be no. Most people do not trust AI data, but it has been forced on us either way. In fact, I love the opening sentence here to this Malwarebytes article. AI didn't sneak into our lives. It burst through the front door, took a seat at the table, and started finishing our sentences. And I might only spruce up the sentence more by saying, and it refused to leave when we said to go away, because that's kind of where it is. But having a look at a survey, now, they did say that this is a very biased survey. This is a survey done by Malwarebytes blog readers. And if you're reading Malwarebytes blogs, you're probably like me. You're a geek watching for security stuff. You're more about privacy. So this is probably skewed a little bit. It's also a small sample size, 1,200 responses. But they said 90% of respondents said they're worried about AI using their data without consent. And that is a problem. So 4% are the disagree. These people need to be checked into an asylum, make asylums great again. 6% were neutral on it, and 90% are like, yeah, that's kind of terrifying. And so there are some things, I freely share personal information with AI tools, and I would actually say that there's probably more people sharing personal information with ChatGPT and other AI tools than is 6%. So yeah, either they didn't understand the question specifically, or they're trying not to do it, or something is wrong with this, because I really don't think that 88% of people don't give personal data. Many people that I know who are just casual normies walking the world, playing around with this kind of stuff, most of these people that I have seen, that they will tell this thing anything and everything. And then they're like, wow, it's so cool. Wow, it's so helpful. No, it's just sycophantic. It's seeking to destroy you. And all of these people, of course, have problems with narcissists, yet AI is the biggest narcissist in their life, which is kind of funny. All right. Yeah. 92% are concerned that their personal data being used inappropriately by corporations is slightly up from last year. 89%, 74% are concerned about their personal data being accessed and used inappropriately by the government, up from 72%. So, and I'm kind of concerned that both of them will use data. It's just government, believe it or not, is more restrained in what it can or can't do based on competency and structure than other things. That's of course thinking about the fact that many states, you have to give a certain amount of data to your DMV, and the DMV simply turns around and sells that stuff. That's problematic. In fact, there was just a lawsuit in Indiana that shut down, telling people about who was actually abusing that. So in Indiana, there was a lawsuit because people are like, hey, I do not want my driver's license data being sold, but the state of Indiana DMV says, well, we can make millions of dollars by selling it. So they sell the information, and then two bunch of people who pinky promise not to misuse it, and then when they invariably misuse it, they say you can't do that again, but they will refuse to release the names of the companies that have misused their data. And that's what the lawsuit was about. So very interesting stuff out there. So that's kind of how we trust it. But while we're doing this, now all sorts of weird stuff gets pushed out on us, kind of like, this Mave Health is the name of it. It aims to improve attention and mood with brain stimulating headset. But don't worry, guys, it's not a medical device. Because if it were a medical device, it would have to go through FDA regulation. So they're branding it as not a medical device. It's called Mave Health, but it's not a medical device. It helps you with depression and mental illness, but it's not a medical device. Because if it were a medical device, it would need stricter regulation. And they don't want stricter regulation. Let's have a look at this train wreck. All right, so this is San Francisco-based Mave Health, is the latest of that fleet that claim its $495 neuromodulation headset can improve attention, mood, and regulate stress, and even measure mental health. The startup is positioning the wearable as a non-medical device, so it won't need clearance from agencies like the US FDA to sell in the United States. Don't worry, it's a medical device. It's called Mave Health. It will track your depression. It will track your mental illness, but it's not a medical device because they have said so. Okay. So they created this because in 2023, one of these colleagues decided to press the self-delete button. I mean, if they went up to Canada, it'd be perfectly legal. But, down here in the States, that's still a little bit frowned upon. And so they realized the need for such a device after the flatmate's fiancé self-deleted during the Kufi and paranoia. Okay. So sounds like this is probably from the UK. Over here in America, we don't use the word flat. That would be a UK term, so presumably it's over there. So now it's a UK company selling the products in the United States without FDA approval because Mave Health is not a medical device. Got it. U.S. regulators, are you listening? Anybody know a U.S. regulator? Send this along to them. Have a quick look at Mave before it starts selling. It's $500. I didn't see anything in the article about subscription-based, but something like this has got to be subscription-based in addition to the service fee, And so... down here, they're kind of talking a little bit about it. The company worked with a medical device and mental health experts to conduct trials of the technology, eventually took a different route to position the headset as a lifestyle device. That's right. It's a lifestyle device that would let Mave reach a wider audience, or less regulated audience, one of the two. The startup provides an app that can measure long-term trends in mood, focus, and stress levels. It can also integrate with other health data and track measures like heart rate variability. So now this is feeding information about your brain cells up into all of these health apps. Now, it's not a health application. We're not going to regulate it as a health application. We want a broader audience, and we can't have a broad audience if we have to have all of this government regulation looking into it. So Mave Health is not a medical device. Okay. But it's still tracking stuff and reporting it, all this health data back, including other things. And then this, of course, will appear inside of your giant global, not just the medical database your doctor sees, but the corporate database that's they've all pinky promised and spit shook to make sure it's completely secure, totally untamperable. Only the best Indian programmers who have added pinky promises and spit shooks won't actually access it inappropriately. That's just the way it is. This stuff is taken it all, but it's all up in the cloud. It's all over the place. So one challenge is that consumers may use the device without clinical screening or clear guidance about what is appropriate for their symptoms. Really? Well, if it were approved by the U.S. FDA, maybe that wouldn't. No, we don't want to do that. That shows our audience. All right. So now, guys, I'm just going to have to give you a trigger warning. We're going to have to mention 3 letters most people out here just do not like to hear these days. And those letters are R, F, and K. Okay. So RFK Jr. wants every American to be sporting a wearable within 4 years. I'm going to advise you to not listen to this. Or if you are, I have a wonderful video on my Garmin Forerunner that has never seen the internet, never seen a Garmin app, and how I can use it to track things entirely offline, entirely with FOSS applications that do not connect to the internet. Okay. But his whole meeting here says, during a House committee meeting on Tuesday, Kennedy announces a large-scale ad campaign from the federal government to hype wearable tech. All right. So the best thing about this is, since he's just said this, a whole lot of people out there are going to throw away their wearable tech, and I am on board with that. Guys, make wearable tech trash again, okay? Make wearable tech trash again. Please do it. Just trash. So Kennedy revealed that HHS will soon conduct one of the agency's largest ever advertising campaigns to promote their use. He added that in his ideal future, every American will be donning a wearable within the next 4 years. That would be an Apple Watch or an Oura Ring or any one of these devices. So now, guys, our tax dollars, maybe we need to reach out to senators and White House and health secretaries. Be like, dude, do not use our tax dollars to take out advertisements to tell people to use big tech spyware. Okay, let's not do that. This is a really stupid idea. Now, I'm about to irritate about all of you guys. Okay, and you have to understand, but as I irritate about all you guys here, understand that this is actually my field. I worked, I have actual degrees tangential to medical, nutritional type work. Most of what RFK Jr. says is spot on. In fact, everyone had an epileptic seizure about his new food pyramid. Did you guys know, you can look this up, the original nutritional standards were set by the McGovern Committee, who was a senator out of, I think it was North Dakota, in the 70s. And when they originally were working on the nutritional standards, they brought in actual qualified doctors and medical people. And the food pyramid that they had suggested was the exact one RFK just suggested. And it was rejected on political bounds because that food pyramid would lead potentially to unstable food prices in the economy of that era. And Nixon at that time wanted the food prices stabilized. So they inverted it, making the grains the base, because you could easily farm grains and produce this highly processed, shelf-stable stuff we have now, which led to the obesity crisis. Do not take my word for it. Look that up. It is called the McGovern Committee. Look it up. You will see the exact food pyramid RFK Jr. just recommended is in the McGovern report. They rejected it on political basis, but it is actually healthier. This whole thing goes into a bunch of other stuff, but I wanted to focus on that, on the fact that he's recommending this. This recommendation that every American should be wearing a wearable is one of the things he has said that I completely disagree with, because we should not be handing our medical information to these big companies in an unregulated industry where they will not rein in data brokers, where all sorts of problems are going to arise from these types of things. And so I will highly advise you not to be using a wearable. In fact, one friend of mine, after having a number of discussions, only uses the wearable to track exercise actively at the time and then takes the wearables off as soon as exercise is completed. And so there you have a situation where we have, this is one of those things I disagree with him on that principle, is that no, we do not need to be giving all this data into big tech. We should not be giving it up into the techno-medical health complex. That is kind of crazy. We should be taking active steps. And if you can monitor a lot of these types of things independently of yourself and maybe give them to your doctor offline at that time, understand this can provide useful information, but the current implementation of sending that all into the cloud and de-siloing it all inside of simple systems, that is a fundamental problem. That is what I have the problem with. So there is our thoughts. Are you caught up in the techno-medical health complex? Let me know your thoughts about all these in the comments down below.